when another country commits genocide against a population, kills tens of thousands of children, as our closest ally has, as countries tend to do, by the way.
See, once again, Tucker is very, very selective on who he wants to hold who he wants to hold accountable. He wants to hold us accountable, perfectly fine. Wants to hold Israel accountable, okay. Doesn't want to hold Hamas accountable. Doesn't want to call Iran accountable. And this is the part that we keep bringing up with this. It's like, Tucker, you want to talk about decency all day long, but you only want to talk about it within the categories that you care about and toward the targets that you care about. So essentially, he actually goes on to talk about restitution, that we should pay restitution. So here's what Tucker Carlson wants. He wants the American taxpayer to pay restitution anytime civilians are harmed in war. Really? I'm not saying that we shouldn't say that's tragic. But the thing that I would like to point out to Tucker Carlson, who has never had to be on the ground and actually fight these barbarians, is they like to put innocent civilians in harm's way. And when the AK-47 is shooting at you, you don't always know who's pulling the trigger. And yeah, that 16-year-old, that 14-year-old that could be pulling the trigger, they might not want to be there. They might have been forced to be there by one of Tucker's friends. And if they get killed in the process, we're murderers now. Not the people that put them there, we're murderers. And the U.S. government needs to admit that we've committed a crime. We've committed murder. And we're now responsible. You know what, Tucker? Screw you, dude. You have never known what it's like to actually have to go into combat situations, make split-second decisions, trying to do everything you possibly can to put yourself in danger before you harm an innocent. It must be real easy to sit in the ivory tower that has been created by men braver than you and just declare everything like that murder, for which now the U.S. government, the U.S. taxpayer is now on the hook. More than anything else, this absolute hypocrisy by Tucker Carlson is what infuriates me the most. Thank God Tucker Carlson has never been responsible for trying to keep this country safe, because for all of his grandiose language, he has never been in a position to have to make difficult decisions that could get himself killed or other people killed. And it's not to say that we shouldn't come forward and lament and do everything possible in order to prevent civilian casualties. And where we can do better, let's do better. But I'm sick of the moral preening of this man who's never been in those sorts of situations, who's never had to make hard decisions, and who now apparently thinks that anytime an innocent civilian gets killed, it's automatically the fault of whatever nation shot the bullet or launched the Tomahawk missile. It's never the fault of Hamas putting innocent people on a legitimate military target. It's never the fault of Hamas or Iran when they put their own civilians in danger when they could make other decisions. No, it's never their fault. It's always ours. Why? Because we're just not as decent as Tucker Carlson. I'm so sick of it, Christian. I'm so sick of it. And it's not because I don't want decency. And it's not because I don't want the United States to be concerned about trying to prevent civilian casualties or not going into wars. Unlike Tucker Carlson, I know what it's like to live at the business end of bad U.S. foreign policy. But the ease with which he describes all of this, apparently, Christian, every single war the United States has been engaged in, to include the founding, was just guilty of rampant criminal war crimes, murder on behalf of the United States government, United States service members. Why? Well, because any time a non-combatant was killed, we're guilty of murder.
I'm waiting for Tucker to demand that Greece pay Iran reparations for Alexander the Great's conquest of the Achaemenid Empire.
Absolutely. Right? Rome must pay reparations. I got a question. You know what I'm waiting for him to do? I'm waiting for him to call on the Islamic world to not only pay reparations for all the innocents that were murdered as a result of their conquest starting back in the 7th century, but to now also pull back from those lands and to give them back to the people that actually inhabited them before the Islamic conquests.
Yeah, are we going to decolonize Morocco and Tunis?
Yeah.
Give it back to the Phoenicians and the Berbers, right?
Yeah.
Like, give Egypt back to the Copts.
Yeah.
It's one of these, like, what he's doing here is he's taking inherently a liberal progressive framework and he's putting some right-wing paint over it is what he's doing here. Because again, it's so funny how Tucker's one of these type of guys that, like, I'll listen to one thing that he says. Like the point before, we were both sitting here, like, every word that he said, he was spot on. I 100% agree with him. And we need to do this tomorrow. And then he'll get to the next point and you're sitting here like furious because of the way that he's articulating it. It's kind of funny the way that Tucker is about this type of stuff. But like, he is taking an inherently progressive framework, America bad, any sort of civilian casualties or collateral damage in a war is bad, but I'm only going to apply that standard to Western countries, primarily the United States. He'll also throw in Israel in there too. But like, where are we holding Russia accountable for this in Ukraine? Where are we holding China accountable for this with the Uyghurs in Western China? Where are we holding Iran accountable for this with their missile attacks on other Arab countries in the Middle East right now? Where are we holding Hamas accountable for this? How about Hezbollah in Lebanon? How about the PLO invading Lebanon in the 1970s and sparking a civil war that killed tens of thousands of people?
Primarily Christians.
Tens of thousands of people into exile.
Primarily
Christians.
Where
are the reparation calls for the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank to pay restitution for the damage that they inflicted on the people of Lebanon 50 years ago? I don't see Tucker talking about that.
No.
I only see him singling out the US and sometimes Israel for these type of things. And if you want to create that type of standard, then again, I'm going to demand that you apply that same type of standard to Iran, to Hezbollah, to Hamas, to Russia,
Qatar,
to China, to every other country on earth, to the Greeks for what they did to the Iranians 2,000 years ago. Or better yet, how about we simply say that casualties are an inherent aspect of warfare, and trying to overly moralize them is actually a product of the very post-war order that you claim that you're rebelling against, that you're pointing out the flaws into. When you moralize so much like this, you turn it into a political tool, which is what this has become basically.
The moment the standard he applies is applied anywhere else, all of a sudden he wants to ignore it, or he wants to pretend like it's not as relevant. And that's what I'm sick of. And again, I'm especially sick of this. And it's personal. It's personable to me. Not because I found myself in a situation where I had to kill someone that later on turned up to be innocent. All right. It's not that. It's that I understand the complexity of combat. I also understand the lengths that we go to, which is unusual in human history. I understand the lengths that Israel goes to, which is unusual in warfare, in the history of warfare. I also understand the lengths that not a single Arab country goes to. And for Tucker to again apply this standard while giving a pass to everyone, because that's what it is. It's not him just saying, well, look, I'm not focused on other countries, I'm focused on us. Okay. But in the process of being focused on us, you deliberately give a pass to everybody else. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of your third worldist, blame America first bullcrap. You don't get to package that as if you're just decent and the rest of us aren't. Some of us, Tucker, spent a good part of our life before we ever got behind a microphone. We actually went into the various places that you like to discuss, that you like to opine on. And we actually served in those capacities. I didn't just talk about war, I fought one. All right, I didn't just talk about legislation. I actually ran for office, crafted legislation, argued for it, debated for it, went through the process of doing it. You want to talk about entrepreneurial stuff. You want to talk about charity. You want to talk about raising families. Great, Tucker. You can talk about some of those things, but then the rest, it's theory for you. For those of us that had to actually do it, for us to be discarded, for our opinions on these subjects to be so casually dismissed, that's what I find frustrating, especially when it comes to some of the things that are the most deep and personal with respect to conflict and warfare. Like it's not that I believe that you have to have served in the military or have gone to war to have an opinion on foreign policy or to have an opinion on decency or to have an opinion with respect to what genocide is or whatnot. But I do expect I do expect consistent standards across the board. And I do expect at least some degree of deference with respect to the conversation for those that have actually had to do it and live it, and those who have simply watched it on television. Ladies and gentlemen, in case you missed it, we made a big announcement that we have joined the Blaze team, and there are big things happening at Blaze. We would love for you to join us. You can join now at blazetv.com and use promo code Nick40 to get $40 off. Go check it out.